All right, what's going on? First and foremost, of course, got to give all praises, honor, and glory unto the Most High God Yahweh. Let's do so in the name of His only begotten Son, who the word only called Jesus Christ, real name Yahweh Shai, our mediator, a black man, so-called black man. It's your brother Chief Priest Alazar Maloy, aka the Guerrilla Hebrew. Don't mind the fan in the back again. It is ungodly hot. It's currently 4:45 a.m. in Mesquite, Texas, and it's 77 degrees. The coldest has been in the last 24 hours. And the humidity level is crazy, so yeah, my fan is going to be blowing. As long as I'm going to be out here in Texas, get used to this fan blowing. You know, I don't see it getting turned down in the near future. It's the month of May. I know we got some hot summer months ahead of us, so this fan is going to definitely become the B mic on this show, I believe. But anyway, yeah, it's your brother. I'm doing this solo dolo. We're here at episode 9 of the Issa GUERRILLA podcast. Hope y'all enjoyed the last episode, which I labeled episode 8.5 of the Issa GUERRILLA podcast, but was episode 1 of the sub-podcast, the new sub-podcast of the Issa GUERRILLA podcast, which is called Beige Rage, hosted by the Biracial Angels. Hope y'all enjoyed that, where we spoke about Kanye. But yeah, that's how I'm going to be doing that podcast as a sub to this one. So every episode of Beige Rage will be a 0.5 of whatever episode of Issa GUERRILLA we're on. Doesn't mean I'm not gonna have my biracial angel co-host aside on installments of the Issa GUERRILLA podcast, but I kind of want to do something niche for that, the Beige Rage podcast. So just bear with us on that as we develop and get things better, off the ground and operating at a higher level through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai. With that being said, on the episode today, I'd like to tackle recent controversy that has kind of unraveled in the Israelite community, especially amongst a few brothers whom I hold near and dear to my heart and I'm very close with. Those brothers are Captain Tazariak of the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge, Priest Danyala, Elder Priest Danyala of the Lions of Israel, and of course the brother Divine Prospect of Kingdom Harbinger Ministries and the RBG Hebrews. Okay, these are three brothers who I'm very close with, three brothers who I've fellowshiped with personally, broke bread with on several occasions. We're all confidants of one another, and we definitely all network and work together and share information for the purpose of edification of our nation. And the upliftment of the nation of Israel and the Most High God, most importantly. Other brothers involved in this were other brothers who I associate with and build with, like the brother Jashub, powerful brother Jashub, doing a lot. Y'all check his YouTube out, Genesis 49ers. Y'all make sure to check that out because he goes into so much powerful information, giving insight on the 12 tribes of Israel, proving whom and which the 12 tribes of Israel are and exactly which tribe, pinpointing, which has been kind of a thing of controversy of late, and you've seen us dealing with that off and on recently as the 12 tribe chart comes into question. And of course we defend it as well as countless other brothers defend it, but that brother Jashub, he got a real special gift and ability that he's been given by the Most High God at really, delving in deep and breaking things down. So I definitely suggest everybody check out his YouTube channel, Genesis 49ers, powerful brother from the tribe of Issachar, who lives here in Dallas, and Most High One, I'll be linking with him and some other brothers soon. Haven't got a chance to yet since I've been here, which is unfortunate. But my first time in Dallas, I had the pleasure of linking with him, and he took me and the sister I was courting at the time out to a nice dinner at a nice West Indian restaurant here in Texas, man. It was a great time, man. So always big shalom to that brother. Him and other brothers who also I'm affiliated with, like the brother D-Red, and things of that nature. Brother who I'm definitely cool with, man. Always sending me information, always invite me on to speak on his platform and other platforms, man. That's a brother I'm cool with as well and appreciate. But the debate, I heard about it, and then I had kind of spoke to Captain Zariak prior and Priest Danyala prior in regards to it and some of the information that would be presented in it, which was about, is it okay for Hebrew Israelites to identify with the RBG thing? Okay, RBG, red, black, and green. Also, people have other interpretations for the meaning of the acronym. It's kind of something that was kicked up on Sinetta TV with Tazariak. Sinetta had made inquisition to Captain Zaryak in regards to the segment of Hebrews that identify with the RBG flag, and Divine Prospect being one of the forerunners of it, of the RBG Hebrews. Captain Zaryak spoke against it, was very, very adamant in his stance of being against brothers doing so and identifying with the RBG flag because of its close association to and its inclusion of nations outside of Israel. So that kind of sparked a debate, and what it led to was a discussion that was had on Maccabees TV, which is a platform that is foreran by Priest Daniel of Lions of Israel. Big shout out to Maccabees TV. I got some powerful work on there through the Spirit and Power of Yahweh. Check that out. But it sparked a debate. Unfortunately, Tazariah could not make that debate or a discussion. I'll call it a discussion. But the brother Deshub was there. Priest Daniela was there. The brother Divine was there. D-Red was there. Another brother, I believe his name is James Castle, was there. And a brother Mighty Hebrew ended up joining in, and as well as Israel Doctor and Carl Albert ended up joining in. The delusional one, but my dear and beloved brother Carl Albert. And it was an interesting conversation. What was kind of disheartening to me about this conversation was it ain't getting nowhere. I don't feel. I was very kind of disheartened by the progress that was gotten by it. It just, I don't know. I listened to it, and I was gonna say, I was trying to get on to say something, but I was having problems getting on. Priest Daniela did what he could to try to get me on. It just couldn't happen. Towards the end, I finally wanted to say something. Then I was able to catch Captain Zaryak's show, Cross the Line. Comes on Thursdays, ISUPK Radio on YouTube. He was able to present his information, and he took calls. And nobody was able to really gainsay his information. Okay? And what he brought out was something that he spoiled to me prior to bringing it out, which is why I was so excited to hear the damn debate. Was on the UNIA website, which people talk about as RBG stuff, not even realizing that the RBG flag comes from Marcus Garvey, who was the founder of the UNIA. And he wasn't calling it RBG, he was calling it UNIA. On the UNIA website, it's quoted that Marcus Garvey, out of his mouth, said that what RBG stood for, even though people have gone to change the meaning and interpretation of the RBG flag, what RBG stands for in its truest and purest form is red for the reds of the world. The reds of the world being the indigenous peoples, right? Native Americans, indigenous peoples of Central and South America, people who are falsely labeled redskin for being a ruddy shade of brown by the white man. The reds of the world, indigenous peoples. Black stands for black people, so-called black people, another misnomer. And the green stands for Irish people. Stands for Irish people. It's what he said. So ultimately, at the inception of what RBG is, at its foundation, it's about the unification of black people, indigenous people, and Irish people. That's what it's about. Which half of that we of course don't have a problem with, because we are about the unification of black, Hispanic, Native Indian. But then they add the Irish in there. They add that green in there, right? And we know that green is for Irish because when you do with the Irish flag, it's green and orange. And when you understand the culture of Ireland, my mother is Irish, so I understand the culture of Ireland very well. When you understand the culture of Ireland, the green stands for Catholic Irish people, which are the predominant religious identification group in Ireland. Then the orange stands for Protestant people. You see what I'm saying? So that green is always synonymous. St. Patrick's Day, I mean, we know all of it. It's very synonymous with Ireland and Irish people. They love green. It's their favorite color. Things of that nature. The Boston Celtics. I mean, come on now. I ain't got to tell y'all that green is synonymous with Irish people, right? So at its inception, that's in fact what the RBG flag stood for. So somebody tried to call into Tazariak's show and say, well, I mean, a journalist said that, and no, that's not how it works, brother. We're scholars here. We deal scholastically. We're dealing with a man that lived in the 1920s. You sit down for an interview. The journalist that is interviewing you writes down what you say, and then they put it in a newspaper. The journalist didn't say that. The journalist took a quote from the brother and published it in a newspaper. And it had so much weight and validity that the UNIA, as we know it today, took that quote and put it on their website when defining and describing the flag and what it signified. No way around that. I don't care what niggas try to spin it off into later. There's no way around it. And here's another thing. And here's how much of a paradigm shift understanding that is. And here's why us, as Israelites, need to magnify the true meaning of the RBG flag. One, because of its multiculturalism. And a lot of guys that run around talking this RBG madness act as if they are so multiculturalism. Act like they're so anti-white, they're so even anti-Hispanic and Native Indian. But the flag that they got tied around them is contrary to that stance. The very flag that they wear is about the unification of 3 different so-called races of people. They don't know that. They need to know that. They need to know that they are living a lie. They need to, especially the ones that are so anti-indigenous people. Because that's what that red stands for. It's so important for us to know these things and for us to dispel these lies the same way we dispel lies that we see in institutions like the Roman Catholic Church and Islam and things of that nature. We have to dispel those lies. That leads me into, is it okay for people to say they're RBG Hebrews? Initially I was indifferent about it. It really didn't make no difference to me, whatever, not a big deal. But with the unearthing of this type of information, that it mean Irish people, I'm definitely objective. And also, not even that, just taking into scope that it's a Pan-Africanist thing, right? And people can say, and people have said, and I understand the logic, and I don't necessarily disagree, that the Hebrew Israelite movement is a Pan-Africanist movement. But here's the problem. We have to take a look at the word Pan-Africanist. Pan means all of Africa. The Hebrew Israelite movement has never been about the unification of all of Africa. I don't think there is any actual movement that has ever been about the unification of all of Africa other than pipe dreams of ignorant African Americans. I will say it again. There has never been a movement that is thwarted in the unification of the entire continent of Africa and all the peoples thereof outside of pipe dreams of ignorant African Americans. Ignorant why? Ignorant because they don't understand the construct of Africa. They don't understand the people groups of Africa, the ethnic groups of Africa. They have Africa is some big thing to them, like some big, I don't even know what it is. And that just comes from being stripped of your identity, having a lack of things to identify to, so you identify with an entire continent that you're told you could have came from anywhere on, which if you study the transatlantic slave trade for 5 minutes, you would understand that you only came from the western part and no further than the central part. Period. So again, this is a pipe dream. And I was explaining this, and that's why I finally wanted to say something, because what it came down to, I was riding around with a brother in my camp, Officer Bazak Bariyah Bumba Yami, a brother from the Bahamas. Shout out to that powerful brother from the Bahamas. And what we have to understand is this. This brother and me, he's from the Bahamas, my family is from Haiti, right? So we have, even though it's a slave culture, a culture post, our true rise and our true height, we have Haiti. He has the Bahamas. I have a Haitian flag. He has a Bahamian flag. You understand what I'm saying? We have these things to identify with, to cleave to kind of make us feel good at times when it seems as if we have a lack of identity. The so-called African American, whom is the tribe of Judah, is deficient of that, does not have that. And this is where the need of the RBG flag comes in, and this is where the importance and emphasis on being RBG and the unification of all of Africa comes in. You see more of this rhetoric being spoke by so-called African Americans than you do by so-called Afro-Caribbean, Afro-South Americans, or Africans. Why do you see so much of this? Because of how destitute the so-called African American is from an identity. Not to say that we on the islands or in South America and Central America aren't also destitute of identity, because we all have been stripped from being Hebrew Israelites, whom in which we are, the man Jacob whom we descend from. We've all been stripped of that identity. Let's not get it twisted. But we have this supplemental identity of being Haitian, of being Bahamian, of being Jamaican, of being, Surinamese, of being Guyanese, etc. We have that there as a supplement. The so-called African American has an unfortunate disposition of not having a supplemental identity. So their supplemental identity is to identify with an entire continent that is so vast and diverse and large and has so many countries and people groups and ethnic groups in it that it is absolutely ridiculous to try to bunch that whole continent into one thing. Because it's not just one thing. Nobody on that continent identifies as one thing. Period. It doesn't happen. And this is outside of the Israel being in Africa debate, because different people are at different places with it. I, of course, will tell you Israel is in Africa. I'll say this. Ask any Hebrew Israelite, are Canaanites Africans? They'll tell you yes. Okay, well, we're from the land of Canaan. So if Canaanites are Africans and we are Africans, period. It's so problematic to say that Israel is not Africa. Yet and still, that doesn't mean all African people are one people. That's never been a reality. We Africans with the Canaanites, we from the same place, the land of Canaan. And guess what? We never got along. We never were one people. We never were unified. And when we did have a brotherly covenant with them, they stabbed us in the back and sold us to the white man. They did this before the transatlantic slave trade, during the time where the white man infiltrated and took over the Greek Empire. That's a fact. That's in the book of Ezekiel. That's in the book of Zechariah. Then it occurred again. We read about that in the book of Joel. Later on in history, when we were forced out of the so-called Middle East into West Africa, we see this occurring again. We see history repeating itself. So no, even with Israel being in Africa, there is no African unification. And therein lies the problem, because that's what people allege RBG is about, the unification of African nations, a Pan-Africanist flag. And that is a pipe dream. It's a pipe dream. And that's why you see more so-called African Americans from all the tribe of Judah pushing it than other segments of black people. Not to say other segments of black people don't push it, but the numbers are disparaging. Marcus Garvey left Jamaica and came to America to introduce the RBG flag into the world. He didn't do it in Jamaica. You know why? Because the Jamaicans ain't need that RBG flag, because they got their own flag. You see that? In looking at all of this in scope, in hindsight 2020, as they say, in retrospect, it's crazy. Because we look at the Noble Drew Ali's of the world. We look at the Fard Muhammad's of the world. And now I look at Marcus Garvey, and where I didn't put him next to a Noble Drew Ali or a Fard Muhammad, I now put him there. And here's the reason why I put him there. Because to me, he had the same motivations as Fard Muhammad. Fard Muhammad took a look at the African American in America and said these are the most destitute and identityless people in the world. I got to go give him something. So what did he bring to the African American in America? He brought the Nation of Islam. And an identity, something that was black, that black people could have. He taught that the black man was God, something that the black man could have. From there spun off the 5%ers, etc., etc. Right? Prior to him, though, we have Marcus Garvey doing a similar thing. He wants to come to America and give the black man something. But his inspiration for the cultivation of the RBG flag was a song that the white man made that said, everybody on the earth has a flag but the coon. Wait a minute. Marcus, you know that can't stand for all black people, because all them African nations got a flag, the Caribbean nations got a flag. That just stands for African Americans. So he came to Harlem and gave at the Mecca of African Americans and gave the African Americans something. What did he give? The RBG flag. So to me, it makes him look a little bit disingenuous. And then we aren't talking about the fact that dude was a Roman Catholic. You see what I'm saying? I mean, it's so much that I feel like got to be taken into consideration here. And we're so far removed from, to even call RBG an organization. Where is it organized at? Where is this great RBG organization? I remember years ago, the brothers I know in Houston were ran up by a Negro claiming RBG, and were talking about how he and other members of RBG were planning to murder Hebrew Israelites on the corners and murder Muslims that they saw on the corners. What are you going to say? Oh, they ain't RBG. Well, then is RBG organized? We can say that there's not a Hebrew Israelite organization, just one big organization. We can say that we're a nation in exile, we're scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, and there are various organizations, right? But it's nationhood. It's not a single organization. The ISUPK is an organization. LOI is an organization. SICARI is an organization. Lions, we already said Lions of Israel. Kingdom Harbinger Ministries. These are organizations. If you told me somebody from SICARI ran up on you and told you that they was going to start killing RBG niggas, and the word got back to me, somebody's going to get disciplined. Really kicked out for making death threats to people's lives, especially black people. That's crazy, right? But then if I said, okay, I don't even know who that nigga is, he's false claiming, right? But you can't tell me that about RBG, because RBG is not an organized, structured thing here. It's not. There's where are the checks and balances? Who's the leadership? Where's the council? Who are the officers? Who are the judges? Let me know. What's the protocols? How do I become a member? What do I do if I have an issue with another member? How are judgments issued out? What does it take to get a motherfucker kicked out? All these things are things that go into organizational structure. I don't see that with RBG. I just see a lot of niggas that wear the colors and think it's just, a black thing. I mean, it's simple as that. So we can't act like this is some type of organization. So now you take the RBG, something that a lot of Negroes are just identifying with for a lack of an alternative, and then you put it in front of Hebrew. And the whole thing is you don't need to do it. And the reason why everybody's so adamantly against it is because it's like, it's not a need. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I'm not going to go around and call myself a Crip Hebrew. That's something that I did prior to knowing who I was, right? If somebody run up on me and know me from that walk of life and identify me with that, I don't have a huge issue with that, but I'm a Hebrew Israelite. That's my identity. This is what I identify as. You understand what I'm saying? So I don't need to put anything else next to that. That's just who I am. I've heard dudes call themselves Black African Hebrew Israelite. This, I don't know, you ain't got to put none of that. And then Carl Albert, Israel Doctrine, brings in, well Hebrew Israelite. I could just be an Israelite. We just Israelites. Fine. Cool. That's who we are. That's it. That in and of itself is good enough, because that is what, when our forefather Jacob wrestled with an angel, the Most High God gave him that name through that angel, because we have power with men and with God. We are princes of God. We are the upright of God. Yashar Allah. Yashar Allah. You see that? That's who we are. That's good enough. I ain't got to put nothing else on there. But at the end of the day, to each his own. Is it a huge deal? No. And we have to understand, certain brothers don't have a problem with multiculturalism. Certain brothers don't have a problem breaking bread or bringing in other nations. I can't speak this to the RBG Hebrews as an organization. I use that term loosely because I know the brother Divine Prospect, he has Kingdom Harbinger Ministries, then he has RBG Hebrews. So I know Kingdom Harbinger Ministries is his more theological work. RBG Hebrews, I believe, deals more of his communal and, nationalist work. And I believe he keeps those things as separate entities because of the looseness, or not, I won't say the looseness, but the functionality and the purposes of each group. You understand what I'm saying? So there's a reason for that there. So the RBG Hebrews can be a lot less theological, and that could be why they have chosen that name. I just don't feel it necessary, but at the end of the day, they're going to do what they're going to do. I now have a firm stance against the RBG flag now that I understand it, and I'm going to be sure to remind anybody I see rocking it what it represents according to the mouth of the individual that created and cultivated it. So if they not down with indigenous people and Irish people, they got to take that flag off. Just wear your ass a black flag, if you ask me. And don't wear a bandana because, hey, a lot of these same guys will call a Persian a cracker. I don't even have a problem with that. I don't care. But guess what? Persians invented that paisley that's on that bandana that niggas be wearing. That paisley is literally a symbol that exists to pay homage to their god Mithras. A lot of people don't know that. See, these are things people got to study. We got to study the origin of things before we just take them on. Like when we named our camp SICARI, that was something because, we had been independent for a while before the name SICARI came up. But after doing a thorough amount of research on the group SICARI historically, who they were, what they represented, and the things they did to cultivate that energy, we had to research it to make sure it was all right, to make sure that they was up to par with what we was on in order to take that name on. We had to study the origin of that, and we did. we took a look at the misinformation, and we took a look at how the misinformation about the SICARI was outweighed, and we went the way we went. Even before this symbol that some people call the Shield of David, the Star of David, the Mogan David, the pomegranate, the lily, things of that nature, I was on the fence about this symbol, right? It's a lot of controversy. Certain people are ignorantly condemn it without studying. I was on the fence about it because I was hearing this and that. So what I did was I did my own research, and coming to my own research, I had an understanding that this naturally occurring symbol is something we see in the scriptures, be it lily, be it a bud of a pomegranate, be it a honeycomb, be it a snowflake, etc. This is something we see in the scriptures that's likened to positive things, and of course, it is a naturally occurring shape, meaning it's a creation of the Most High, irregardless of what anybody later in time did with it. Moreover, when people say the star ring from the star Molech, they literally can produce zero archaeological evidence to support any of that madness. But anyway, I had to do research about this before I put it on my chest, before I used it as the signet of this camp. So we do our research, and the research of the RBG flag, just like it says, prove all things and hold fast to that which is good. Prove means to test. Put things to the test. Put it to the test. If it comes back good and gold, we keep it. If it doesn't, you throw it out. The RBG flag did not pass the test. It needs to be thrown out, in my opinion. Now, them brothers going to do what the hell they want to do, and that's fine, and that's on them. I love them anyway. I'm looking forward to the next opportunity I have of seeing these brothers and fellowshipping and all of that with these brothers. You understand what I'm saying? Most High, when I be seeing Divine Prospects, Sonnet Awards, July 7th. All right? New York City, Manhattan, be there. You understand what I'm saying? I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully I'll see Tazariak and Daniela and them all at that same time. It's going to be a great time. It's going to be a whole lot of red, black, and green in that motherfucking room too. And guess what? They better know what that red, black, and green stand for. I'm sure Tazariak going to beat them to their head. I'm going to do my best. Daniela going to do his best. Jashub going to do his best. And anybody else who feels compelled, do your best to make sure they understand what that red, black, and green stand for, because they don't know. And something's been propagated to them. That's a goddamn pipe dream, quite frankly. And that's got to be dispelled. Period. You know? So that whole thing, and again, these differences shouldn't cause hard feelings. Brothers just come to certain, conclusions predicated upon research, and also sometimes predicated upon biases. Sometimes you do bias-based research, but we have to understand that even if it stood for unification of all of Africa don't want to unify with you, and you ain't got no business unifying with all of Africa, because some of them Africans is Canaanites. And guess what? We're forbidden from making covenant from Canaanites pursuant to Torah. So now what? You see the conundrums we get into? Just keep it Israel. You just keep it all the way Israel. These conundrums, you ain't seeing. You see what I'm saying? So that's what's problematic about that RBG Hebrew thing, in my opinion, and I'm sure that this is a sentiment that's shared by several others. I'm also sure that there's a great deal of other brothers who, oppose that sentiment, and that's fine as well. I don't think that these brothers are committing some grave sin and atrocity for wearing the RBG flag. I just feel like it's worthless. And Divine says something like, he's building with certain people and things like that, and using resources, African resources, and that's cool. I truthfully don't feel like the RBG flag has any bearing on your ability to do that, though. I truthfully don't. I can go to an RBG event and I don't have to wear red, black, and green. I could wear Israelite apparel, and it'd be cool, and nobody. I don't feel like I'll be looked at any differently if I don't wear red, black, and green. And personally, I don't think those colors even look good. I think they're hideous together, quite frankly. And niggas need to start wearing them shit together. Personally, again, these are all my personal convictions. Y'all can take it or leave it. I'll be rocking dashiki. Some people are against dashikis. We're African, people will say. Well, I mean, all the clothes, nigga, you wear is made in Asia or goddamn Europe somewhere. Are we not supposed to wear those? That's a really stupid argument. On top of that, all them dashikis are Asian too. People don't realize. Them is not African, really. Those are really Asian. Thailand for $15. You get them. Trust me, I know. I got nigga every color, so I know. But yeah, man, that was it. And also, people are bearing this question: where is One West in the Bible? Where is One West in the Bible? And shout out to brother Captain Zaryak. He did a powerful job on answering it. But One West is in the Bible. Point blank period. And I want to bring an alternative scripture out in regards to it. Out of the mouth of who the world calls Christ, Yahweh Shai, a black man, a so-called black man. I always like to emphasize that because you never know who's listening to these podcasts. We get a little bit of a different audience than we get for our typical videos. But yeah, so I want to get this scripture. Hold on. There's a scripture about One West in the Gospels, man. One of my favorite. My fault. It's just it. Hold on. I'm looking for it. Okay, right here, yeah. Book of Luke, Luke 14, and I'll start at 16. Then he said unto him, a certain man made a great supper and bade many. What is a great supper? That's the kingdom, right? He bade many. Verse 17. And sent his servant at supper time to say to them that were bidden, come, for all things are now ready. It's time. Let's do it, right? It's time to go. Time for the kingdom. Verse 18. And they all with one consent began to make excuse. The first said unto him, I have bought a piece of ground, and I must needs go and see it. I pray thee have me excused. And another said, I have bought 5 yoke of oxen, and I go to prove them. I pray thee have me excused. And another said, I have married a wife, and therefore I cannot come. So the servant came, and shewed his lord these things. Then the master of the house, being angry, said unto his servant, go out quickly into the streets and the lanes of the city, and bring in hither the poor, and the maimed, and the halt, and the blind. So that's Abba Bivens. When Elder Bivens was up in the commandment keepers, those are the people who were bade to that initial feast, and those are the people who made excuse. Right? A lot of them, again, were non-messianic. So Elder Bivens is that servant that the Most High told to go into the streets and the lanes of the city and bring in the poor and the maimed and the halt and the blind. And that's why he went out to the streets to teach and bring in the brothers that he taught through his work on the streets, his street ministry. Something that them commandment keepers and dudes like that wasn't doing. They were just in a black Judaism. Verse 22. And the servant said, Lord, it is done as thou hast commanded, and yet there is room. That's going into how his work progressed. Going into Ariane, them coming in, Yaiquab, Mashal, all the way up into the 80s with the elder generation you see now when they came in, right? But there was room. It wasn't all the way time yet. There was room still. Because it was all kind of brothers all over the world that still need to get the truth and come into this thing that hadn't yet, and we're the brothers that exist now, right? Verse 23. And the Lord said unto the servant, go out into the highways and hedges and compel them to come in, that my house may be filled. For I say unto you that none of those men which were bidden shall taste of my supper. Meaning those dudes going back to the commandment keepers and them. Right? So that's what that's dealing with One West in the scriptures and the work of Abba Bivens and what he did and how he bid so many people to the marriage according to the word of who the world calls Christ, Yahweh Shai. Right? I want to say there might be another account of this too. My fault. Well, I'm in Luke 14. Yeah, there's another account, I think. It just might be a little bit more in depth. I could be mistaken. That's the. Yeah, I think that was it. So, I mean, that's the scripture I always like to go to show One West in the Bible, because that's literally chronicling through the word of Yahweh Shai, which he spoke through the Holy Spirit from the Most High, was clearly showing the work that Elder Bivens did was documented in the scripture. He broke away from that group. Those are the people that was originally bidding and make excuses. Then he went out to the streets, bid people. He had to bid more. Then his servants had to bid more. You see what I'm saying? That happened. So that's another example of One West in scripture. You can't show me that with other groups and other individuals. So to me, that is even further sealing of the deal through the spirit and power of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua. Period. So, yeah, but those are really the things that I wanted to touch on in this edition. I didn't have too much else other than hearing Mighty Hebrew and Israel Doctrine go back and forth was absolutely hilarious. I never heard. It's funny. I know Mighty Hebrew personally. Met the brother, spent some time around the brother. I had no issues with the man. I never heard him do that before. He really went to tripping, cursing and so-called quote-unquote cursing, bitch, pussy, talking hardcore gangster shit. Not saying that brother ain't built like that. I mean, he had a reputation prior to his awakening, for certain. But man, it was kind of crazy. It was kind of surreal because he's always a brother that's poised. He's so careful about the things that he says, chooses words wisely. Man, he snapped. He snapped on Carl ass, man. Carl need to chill out. Stop having them delusions of grandeur. This dude, Carl Alberto, Deacon, called me on the phone. He said, man, yeah, this nigga Israel Doctrine talking about he spanked you on a debate. I said, my nigga, I've never debated this dude. Where did he spank me at if he and I have never had a debate? Never. I always refuse to debate you because of the damn antics and the tactics that you used prior to. Then when I agreed to a debate with you in person, you messed that up twice, right? By doing weird stuff. This nigga, man, there was a point in time where this nigga took my picture and made it his default image. He wanted to debate me so goddamn bad. So then we tried to set up an in-person debate, and the nigga going out of his mind, talking all kind of crazy shit, blew that. Nigga, don't walk around talking about you did anything to me in a debate that never happened. Where's a debate? Did it happen on Debate Talk for You? Did it happen on any of Sonetta's channels? Did it happen on my channel? So then it didn't happen. Because outside of what 2 debates I had on Talk Real Solutions, all my debates have either been on my channel, Debate Talk for You, or Sonetta channel. Period. So that's out. That's way out. But it was funny, man. Carl is crazy. Mighty Hebrew. I didn't realize that brother's crazy. And but yeah, so I don't want to keep y'all too much longer. I don't got too much more to say on this. I try to keep my episodes of Issa Guerrilla around an hour, but I see this one's just gonna fall short. So it is what it is. Subscribe, Patreon, follow us, Instagram, Facebook, all of that. Links in the description. With that, again, all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, and Shalom.